what I bring into my team is just like really caring, like really,
Yeah.
really, really caring. And that sounds arrogant to say that, oh, I hope people act like me, but I hope they care as much.
Welcome to Franchise Leader Spotlight. I'm Katherine LeBlanc. This series highlights the leaders shaping franchising today, how they built their careers, what they're focused on now, and what they believe is coming next for the industry. Let's dive in. Brought to you by my podcast host. Hey guys, I'm chatting with Paul Pickett today. Paul has over 35 years of experience of bringing people and nature together as the Chief Development Officer and Executive Vice President of Franchise Development for Wild Birds Unlimited. He leads the franchise development team and has grown the system to over 360 stores. And I am just so excited to be here with you today, Paul. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my heavens, Catherine, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start, where everybody's thinking of 35 years with the same brand. Tell me more. Kind of tell me, how did you get started here? And then I'm really interested in how did you decide to stay and how did they keep you? Because I think that in franchising we often see these seats changing a lot. And so I'm just curious about your personal journey.
Absolutely. And actually, it's within 2 months of 37 years here at Wild Birds
Oh, wow.
Unlimited. Yeah, yeah. So I'm very fortunate. So one of my great personal passions and loves has always been birds. And I went to school to become an ornithologist, to have my master's in ornithology. And people have heard this story before, so I don't want to bore, but I ran into the founder and his wife, came into the business even before she was his wife, but Jim and Nancy Carpenter, who are just the most amazing mensches and wonderful bosses, wonderful leaders. I ran into them at a garden show, a flower and patio show, started chatting. I asked if I could work in their store, not realizing it was a franchise, honestly, not even knowing what a franchise was at that point, other than
Mhm.
I'd heard the word tossed around with McDonald's and football teams. That's what I had
Right.
heard
Yeah.
about. And a long story, but I'll make it short. I ended up going up there, helping out. It was the weirdest job interview in the world. I ended up unloading a truck and then selling some stuff in their store. And they said, we're actually not all that interested in having you work in the store. We have this franchise. I said,
Okay.
I don't know anything about business. That's probably not going to be a good match. I was young. I was
Mhm.
24 or 25 at the time. And they said, no, actually it is. So came back a week later and literally started the next week as the first full-time employee. My title was franchise assistant. And there was one other employee at the franchise support
Mhm.
center who was a part-time bookkeeper, office
Okay.
manager.
Well, and so tell me, did you start in sales or were you more on the support side?
I started doing everything.
Okay.
I think one of my first jobs was to clean the cat litter box at the office
Mhm.
as they brought their cats in, and I was given a list of stores that we
Mhm.
had on a
Mhm.
piece of paper and start calling them, introduce myself. And at the time, and I don't mean this to sound derogatory towards Jim and Nancy, but they had like a shoebox full of, back then, this is before the internet, before
Yeah.
anything, of cards that people had called in and asked for franchise information that they had never called back. So I just put my desk
Okay.
together,
Yeah.
honestly, literally put my desk together, ordered myself a telephone and started calling people and asking them
Yeah.
about their interest. And I did that. I also did what we called store visits then. Now it's a lot more
Mhm.
complex and coaching and putting together with a glue stick and ad slicks and creating marketing materials for them,
Mhm.
talking to suppliers who submit their products and say, well, do you think this is a good thing? Well, so I did it all. I mean,
Yeah.
we all did
Right.
it all, right? I mean, in the beginning,
Yeah, when you're starting, right, it's a small team, you have
yeah,
all hands on deck, and then when you're supporting other people, sometimes they're setting the agenda, right? And so you're busy getting the support that they need so that they can be successful. And so it's not hard to stay busy and to stay engaged because there's just so much to do.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, we did it all. And then as the team grew, people fell into the roles. And there was a point where Jim and Nancy took me out to lunch and said, there's franchise development, there's operations. You
Mhm.
get to choose which one do you want to dive deeper into. And then for a while, I was in charge of both.
Okay.
I was not great at that. It was too much. It was by that point we had grown to a certain point that there was too many, and I said, "This is two full jobs."
Mhm.
But I'm still highly involved because
Mm.
so I'm CDO, but also EVP of franchising, not just
Okay.
franchise development. So I'm in charge of all the legal. I'm in charge of real estate. A lot of franchisor relationship stuff
Yeah.
gets into it is under my umbrella, or for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Well, and I would love to ask you this question around, people are thinking about building their teams and adding to their teams.
Hmm.
The kind of friction that comes up is, do I promote from within because I have this institutional knowledge that I really want to hold on to? Or do I bring in outsource because they're bringing on information that or, experience that I don't have yet? And so there's sometimes friction between, I want to bring in somebody outsource. I want to bring in, I want to promote from within. Obviously, you have built some institutional knowledge at this brand that has been valuable to the team and to the growth of the organization. I'd love to hear your thoughts around kind of how you think about that.
Well, I think you have to look at each individual position and each need for what you're trying to support differently. And
Mhm.
I'm not the only one who's been around here for a long time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Jim Flesh and the product team has been here for 30. He'll have his 30th year anniversary. Amy Moore, our COO, has been here for 30 years, 28 years, and grew up in the business. We've got a number
Mhm.
of team members. Bo from VP of Marketing has been here for ever. I mean, we've got a lot of longevity, but we've also
Mhm.
brought in people. But it really just depended on, do we have the bench strength internally already who can take that
Mhm.
institutional knowledge plus elevate to the level that we feel is necessary to support our franchisees
Right.
and do it? Or do we need to look outside and bring in
Mhm.
freshness and newness? And I think there's great opportunities that come along with that too.
Yep.
So I don't think that you can say that, I don't think I feel comfortable saying that one strategy is better than another.
No, and to your point, it's dependent on the needs of the brand and it's dependent on the bench that you have. And can those people kind of rise up and fill the roles that you're looking for?
Right. And
Now,
are there
yeah.
ways for us to support them by giving them the advanced training that they need to?
Mhm.
Where can we give them that extra knowledge, not bandwidth, and get them where we feel that they need to be?
Yeah, level them up essentially. And I think that a
Yeah.
lot of companies are, I don't know, when you think about investment, right? And so you're thinking about the investment in building, leveling somebody up, and that's employee development and sending them to conferences, sending them to training, hiring outsourced consultants to come in and help them grow and learn in their field versus, hiring from the outside. And sometimes when you look at that investment, the investment to invest in your employees could be a better use or return on investment in some instances.
Absolutely, and the one of the most important things is the culture match. The culture match, the
Yes.
connection with with their peers in here at our office, but more importantly, the culture match with our franchisees and relating to them and understanding them. And when you bring somebody in that's brand new, there's usually a ramp up that has to happen because they
Yeah.
don't get it. And I think in coaching, we have this amazing coaching team, but many of them have come from corporate retail. And
Mhm.
where it shall be written, so it shall be done. It just comes down from
Yeah.
above. Well, that's not
Yeah.
the way franchising works. You're selling every initiative, and
That's
you have
right.
to understand the franchisee and where they are in their
Mhm.
trajectory. And do they have the bandwidth intellectually,
Mhm.
emotionally, time, money to actually do this implemented
Yeah.
idea? And how are you going to sell it? You have to take each one individually. Are they
Yeah.
an early adopter? Do they want to wait till the very end? Do they want to get the kinks out? Do they like getting the kinks out? Do they like to be part of the process?
Mhm. Yep.
Or do they just want to jump on when it's all figured out? And
Yeah.
that's a different coaching strategy completely. Each one of those,
Mhm.
are are
Yeah.
are different.
Yeah, I talk about when I'm talking to people about franchising and if they're new to the industry or thinking about getting in the industry, what I often say is that this is an industry of influence. When you're on the corporate team, you are not just doing marketing. You're not just doing operations. You have to be an influencer because if you don't have adoption on the programs that you're rolling out, the programs are useless. And so I think that in that operations role, you're right. It's essential to really understand, how do I meet the operator where they are? Because at the end of the day, I can't influence or implement without knowing where they are and who they are, and how to get it going.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I think that you've alluded to kind of your start in the space was at a time when, really, you've alluded to the evolution of what you've seen from beginning your career as kind of part of a small team, growing with the team. Certainly, you've seen franchising itself grow, right? From
And
knowing,
change.
McDonald's and football teams to understanding that anything can be franchised and everything is franchised. I'd love to get your perspective on, just the evolution of the industry, and maybe some things that you're excited about that has evolved, or some things that you're surprised have evolved.
I think always excited about new ways to support franchisees, new ways to help
Mhm,
them figure out how to meet their goals. And oftentimes those goals are not just fiscal goals, but they're also lifestyle and time management goals, and how you mesh those two together. And a lot of it comes from franchise development and who you are awarding your franchise to, because I will
mhm,
tell you that there's a massive difference in who was a, at the time, very qualified candidate for our brand in 1994 versus who is a very well qualified candidate in 2026. Because
mhm,
the world has changed. And if you're not changing with it, you're going to be left
mhm,
behind.
mhm.
So just, there are tools and styles and, communication channels and access to information that's so very different than what it was in the beginning, that I think you have to keep up on. That's a very
Yeah,
exciting thing. I'm not an expert by any means, but just even the use of AI on how to create efficiencies and then how to help our franchisees use those same tools.
sure.
And I mean, I'm old, right? I mean, and I am. And, the end is much
Yeah,
closer
I
than the
can't
middle
believe we're
for
all old.
me. But just making sure that you're choosing people who are still willing to learn and they're not ever going to just rest on their laurels. That's an important thing right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and you mentioned, the candidate has changed, as your brand has grown, as times have changed. I love what you just said around, I feel like that's probably universal, finding people who wanna learn and are not gonna rest on their laurels. But tell me more about, what have you seen change in the types of people that wanna own a franchise and are coming to you today?
it it's more complex, it's more expensive, there's more at risk.
Mhm.
And so we're having people that are
Right.
more comfortable with risk. They more motivated and focused on actually building a true enterprise. Part of that is us and the marketing that we're doing, and not it. This is not just buying a job, selling birdseed and chilling out, right? So
Yeah.
when people early days, people would say, I'm retired and I would want a nice little retirement thing to do. And I'm like, great,
Mhm.
wonderful, let's go. That
Yeah.
that would be a red flag to us now.
Well,
So
and it really speaks not just to the changing persona of a franchise development candidate, but also the changing sophistication of your brand, right? Because
correct.
in the beginning stages, you're looking for people to grow with, you're looking for the pioneers, you're looking for people who may be a little bit more open to risk, because they don't, you don't know how this location is going to do in this market. And now that you've matured, it's a little bit more of a stable, nothing is ever a sure thing, but you have a stable system that they're investing in.
Right. But we have, and I don't think this is completely unique to us, but we also need people who are not interested in just a total plug and play, right?
Yeah.
Because part of our brand is that our ultimate customer is not a human, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a bird. And birds are different. And you can take one metro area and have different populations depending on if you're more in a closer to the urban area versus closer further out to the countryside. And the birds you attract, the inventory that you're going to carry based on the birds that the customer base is going to attract is going to be
Hmm.
different. The focus in the store could be a little bit different. So we need franchisees who want to follow our system, follow our brand standards, but also acknowledge that we're not going to have a one and done, right? So
Yeah.
it's spring nesting time campaign is
Hmm.
different in Florida than it is in Maine or
Yeah.
Minnesota or Alberta. And so having franchisees who know, yeah, I'm going to have to make individual decisions based on
Hmm.
using the tools that you have, based on the approach that you have, but I'm going to have to mess with the timing on it a little bit.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to have to play that in accordance to what my market and my customers and my market's birds
Yeah.
are doing at that time.
Paul, as you're kind of explaining that, I'm thinking about, I do think it's quite unique in the sales space in franchise development to really understand that level of detail that you need from your franchise. And certainly it's a best practice. And certainly, we can talk all the time about knowing your persona and knowing who you're targeting. But the fact that you know why you are targeting that persona, I think is really powerful. And frankly is not something that I see widespread in the sales teams that I have been exposed to. I think that
Mm.
um really understanding and the reason I bring it up too is you have an interesting path in that you started doing all the things kind of in operations and then landed in Frandev and kind of that's where you found your home. I've seen a couple of other people take that same path and it's interesting to me because with an operations background, you don't normally associate an operations mind with a sales mind. And so that path is a windy one to me.
I think if it's done, I'm not going to say it's right. That seems arrogant, but if it's done at least the way that I did it and my team does it all the time,
Hmm.
we're not salespeople, we're educators.
Yeah.
And we're
Well, and I think that
we're
that's sort of
guiding a
the
journey
yeah,
and certainly
right.
understanding when it's time to educate and when it's time to inspire. Franchise sales, always hated that. I always talk about the award. I don't like the sale word, but we're stewards. We're stewards
Hmm.
of our candidates and stewards of our brand and making sure that the candidate and the brand are both going to be well
Yeah.
represented. And I mean, that's the definition of stewarding. Multiple people helping make a decision that is going to affect the assets and
Hmm.
aspirations and future of
Yeah.
both parties, right?
Yeah. No, I love that. And I often speak, when I'm serving as a marketer, I speak in that same language of I'm a steward of the brand. This is not my opinion. This is not, I'm a steward of bringing the brand to life for the end consumer. And so I very much relate to that sentiment. And I think that, what I see though is that with that operations experience, you can fill that role as a steward. And so as people are starting to think about their franchise development teams and think about who they're hiring, I think having a strong training program and a strong exposure to the actual operations of the business really can help you identify good fits for the
Right.
brand.
Right. I think I agree. I agree. Having people that understand, I mean, my team, mainly retailers who were then hiring managers and understood that this is what I'm looking for in a really good
Hmm.
manager from a corporate retail setting.
Hmm.
So we're looking for people who are going to be accountable, people who are going to be hungry, people who are going to follow the guidelines, but also potentially challenge them when they think that they're in a good way, that are going
Hmm.
to stay within the brand standards, but question how to get this done in the best way that will be of benefit to Wildbirds
Hmm.
Unlimited and to the Wildbirds Unlimited brand and to them as a individual owner of their business. And
Hmm.
also understand that we don't own their businesses. They own their businesses.
Hmm.
We own the brand.
Right.
They're
Hmm.
responsible for that. Really setting those boundaries and expectations of, when a franchisee calls me, she's like, "Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I never could have done this." I'm like, "That's lovely, but you really need to be thanking
Yeah.
yourself and your team because you're the
Right.
one who actually made this happen. We gave, hopefully, you the right tools and the right
Yeah.
advice and the right motivation and the right technology platforms. You can have a whole toolbox full of hammers, but if you pounded the nail in with your fist and don't use all those tools, that's stupid, right? So you've done the smart thing."
Yeah. Well, and I want your take on this. So, in our industry, we often hear about growth is tied, we associate success with growth and fast growth. And I have this many units in the pipeline and I've sold this many units. And then on the flip side, we talk about, well, we don't have good franchisee fit. and we don't have the right people coming into our system. And so, how do we get better at selecting the right people coming into our system? And for me, I really see that those two things coming to a head, because if we're rewarding growth and if we're rewarding the awards that we're giving to our franchise prospects, but yet we want to be really strict on the people that we're bringing into the system, sometimes they're not meshing up. How have you navigated that in your career?
Great leadership from
Mhm.
Jim and Nancy Carpenter, making
Mhm.
a focus on royalty sufficiency as early as possible so you're not dependent on brand dev to carry the weight to get those franchise fees. Um,
Mhm.
but just I was always told, do the right thing. If you do the right thing long term, you're ultimately going to get the goals. You reach
Mhm.
the goals. But we've never done packs. We don't award packs. And I get it. It works for other brands. It just doesn't work for us. We're not going to actually allow you to have buy a second unit if we don't know that you know how to do it
Mhm.
really well with number one. Um, we don't have a lot of sold not opens. So our item
Mhm.
20 looks real
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Um, And when you focus on franchisee satisfaction and franchisee profitability, you're going
Mhm.
to focus on giving your development team the tools that they need to make good choices, because you're going to have a good item 20 I mentioned earlier, you're going to have a good
Mhm.
item 19, you're going to have an empty item 3
Mhm.
with
Yeah, well, let's dig
litigation.
into that a little bit more. What are if an owner or a founder is listening today and really wants to understand, how do I build a franchise development program that supports somebody sticking around for 37 years, that supports, good franchisees that are invested in the system and invested in using the tools that I'm providing to them. Touched on it a little bit, but I'd love for you to go into a little bit more detail around the guidance and leadership and franchisee satisfaction side of things.
Yeah, I think it's developing a strategy, a franchise development path, and that journey
Mhm.
that ensures that you have a lot of touch points in it. It is focused on results and education and understanding of each other, not on time that it takes to quote unquote close the deal.
Mhm.
I mean, do we track closing time? Yes, because that's what everyone calls it. I hate that word. When we start with a candidate, we're like, this is, they oftentimes, one of the standard questions, how long does it take? And it's like, that
Mhm.
depends on you. Like
Mhm.
we can get through this process on our end in X amount of days, but it's probably not going to happen that fast for you, because you're going to need to really spend the time and energy understanding the great rewards, the great support, and also the risk. And you're going to have to communicate with your family. They
Mhm.
may or may not be on as fast as you are. So just taking the time in the beginning to develop a process that really allows both you and the candidate to get to know each other on a deep level, and bringing other people into the mix. We
Mhm.
have we don't call it operations, we call it coaching, but our coaching team and operations have institutional authority to say no to any award.
Yeah. Okay.
And that they
And
just
what
do.
does that look like? Are they meeting them
Yeah.
on a meet the team call or
Meet the
during
team calls, Zoom,
Okay.
I mean, use platform, video, getting involved, I mean, the amount of data that we produce and provide to them prior to that, so they understand, they get full transparency until the questions that we asked, the questions, how
Mhm.
they answered, their backgrounds, I mean, the whole thing is, it's a lot of data. It's a lot of prep work that we do to provide to that teams
Mhm.
to ensure that they have a good understanding of who they're saying yes to, and that when they're saying yes, they feel very confident, but they're also bought into the decision, so that they know
Mhm.
that, yeah, we said yes, let's move forward with these people. And everyone's got their own, the greatness, but also that we know this is going to be a little bit of a challenge, and we understand it going in.
Mhm.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense? So I know in support that, let's just say it's a husband wife team, and the husband isn't going to be working in the business, but he's sort of taken the lead on the candidate journey. And we'll tell them, so really focus on understanding the main operator. And I use that just kind
Yeah.
of a traditional thing, but they're not going to be the ones working in the store. They're not going to be the ones
Right.
that are going to be on these coaching calls. Well, they may, but they may not. Or they're going to have the knowledge of what they need more than this person who may have been a driver over here. So you need to get that driver to shush a little bit and to
Yeah.
allow a place at the table for the operator who's going to be the one you're working with, and to feel
Yep.
like they're very confident that that individual is the match.
Right. Yes. And we'll be able to execute.
Correct.
Yep. That makes sense. That makes sense. And I think that the knowledge that you've had in building your career in franchising over the last 37 years is something that I think everyone kind of wants to soak up. And so, with that in mind, what are some things that you hope are still true in the next 5 years?
And franchisors are as committed to their franchisee's success, and that looks very differently. But for each individual franchisee, I hope that that continues. I hope that people are adopting new technologies and new ways to really dive deep into understanding the why behind a franchisee's decision to join your brand.
Yep.
Um, I mean, I'm very, very fortunate that I don't have a lot of pressure that a lot of development people and teams have, which is what I would call it's oftentimes a PE pressure, sometimes a founder pressure, but to say I want to be able to, when I leave the brand, that I've left a legacy of franchisees who are going to miss me.
Yeah. Yeah. That you made an impact, sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of impact, when you think about kind of the next generation of franchise development leaders, what kind of impact are you hoping that they can make in their careers? And do you have any advice for that group?
Yeah. Well, I think that they're probably going to be better at integrating new ideas and technology. And it's like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm a total Luddite, but it's harder for me sometimes to jump onto it and to learn it. They don't have that same issue, but I hope they have. It's weird to say this. I don't like saying this, but just like I, I- what I bring into my team is just like really caring, like really,
Yeah.
really, really caring. And that sounds arrogant to say that, oh, I hope people act like me, but I hope they care as much.
Hmm.
And it can be different, right? I mean, I'm really good friends with a lot of my franchisees. That doesn't always work for everybody, but you can be really great and really caring without having different boundaries than I have.
Well, and I think that you said it, right? If the team, not just franchise development, but if the entire team is rooted in franchisee success, then that North Star makes a lot of decisions for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm being
Yeah.
consistent in that, I mean,
Mhm.
it's sometimes it manifests how that looks, but the core is the same,
Yep. Yep.
right?
That makes sense. Yeah. Well, Paul, it's been so awesome talking to you today
So
and
fast.
learning more about it. Yes, it's a
It
quick
went so
conversation.
fast. I looked down and I'm like, wow, that time went fast. Thank you. They made that easy.
Oh,
Lovely.
it's been a pleasure. And I think that, the most important thing that I'm taking away from our conversation is that caring legacy. And I think that when you combine that caring legacy with the fact that your overall goal is to make sure that the franchisees you've brought into the system have been successful, I think that is something that anyone building their franchise development team should look for in that interview process, right? Finding someone who is not only rooted in the success of you and your brand, but rooted in the success of the franchisees, and you'll get a good match.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep. Well, thank you so much. It
Thank
was a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. I appreciate it.
Brought to you by my podcast host. If you're building, leading, or supporting a franchise system, this series is for you. Stay connected to the leaders shaping the future of franchising by subscribing.